Charlie Kirk was right about the problems in higher education, but that doesn't mean every Christian conservative high schooler should reflexively write off college. Welcome to Sharpening Arrows, where we train teens to think biblically about life and politics. I'm your host, Victor Jakes. Hope everyone has had a great summer. We are getting back into the swing of things in the Jakes household. And today that included going to music lessons for one of my children. And something happened at the end of that lesson that I think is actually instructive. The music teacher asked my son, were you able to practice this song? And my son said, I wasn't able to get to that. Now, I just want you to think about the implication behind that statement. I wasn't able to get to that. Let's have a pause point. You know that we love to do these. I ask parents that you actually stop the podcast and ask your child questions and discuss it. So what's the implication behind the statement, I wasn't able to get to that? Well, the idea is I just had so much going on. Every single minute of the day was booked, and try as I might, I just couldn't get to it. And the reason you would want to say that, the reason it comes very naturally to say that for all of us, right? Not just one individual, not picking on my son, but it defends us, right? We know we should have done this, but it was outside of our control. I just couldn't get to it. But the problem, and teens and preteens, I want you to really think about this. The problem with that statement is you make yourself a victim. All of a sudden, you're not a person with agency. You're not a person who makes choices. You're just a victim of the fact that, I couldn't get to it. When in fact, 99 times out of 100, I would submit, you could have gotten to it, but you didn't because you chose to do other things. And so when you're faced with those moments, I encourage you to say, and I say this to myself as well, I encourage you to say, I didn't get to it. Not that I couldn't get to it, because I could have. I didn't get to it. You are not a victim. You are a person with agency, and don't give that gift away. Little changes like that can make a big difference. I encourage you, the next time you say, I have to do this, you just say, I get to do this. Just that one little word will change your whole mindset, even if it is something that you may not really enjoy. I get to do this. Think about why doing this is a positive, or what it reflects that you can be thankful for. So that's what we do on this podcast, right? We don't just take things at face value. We dig in, we dive into principles, and we are going to talk about the best ideas of the political left and non-believers. Parents, I encourage you to listen with your teens and preteens. We don't have to be afraid of these ideas. We can talk about the appealing parts of these ideas, but then we can also show what the truth is and how we can confront those arguments with better ideas. And teens and preteens, here's what's in it for you. If you ever want to debate like Charlie Kirk or ask questions like Allie Beth Stuckey, you simply must understand your opponent's best argument, not a straw man version of that argument. And remember, if you want to watch, we are on YouTube, youtube.com/@sharpeningarrows, youtube.com/@sharpeningarrows. Well, as I said before, the school year has started, and if you are approaching the back half of high school, if you are a junior or senior, you are probably thinking a lot about what comes next, or at least your parents are thinking a lot about what comes next. But even if you aren't, even if you are a 7th or an 8th grader, or you're a freshman or a sophomore, I encourage you to really dig into today's topic, because we're going to look at the state of higher education. And instead of actually digging in too much into the policy side, and there are lots of interesting policy discussions to be had, I'm going to ask you to look at this from a more personal perspective and have you use those grade 8 questions that we have to think through college and you. All right, let's have a pause point. Kids, ask your parents, put them on the spot. What options did they consider as they approached their high school graduation? I think it'd be interesting for you to find out what they thought about when they were your age. For me, I had the expectation that I would go to college. I'm not even sure how expressed this was, but I was doing well academically and knew that's what I wanted to be. I ended up at Hillsdale College, which is a very conservative college. It was a terrific experience, academically, socially, spiritually. In many ways, I grew up and matured while I was at college. And I can see a direct line from some of the things that I did there, that I learned there, the friendships that I made there, to what I do today. It was a very formative experience. But I went to college a long time ago, before many of the people listening to this podcast were even alive. And today, many people aren't as excited about higher education. Just 38% of Americans express confidence in higher education. That's according to a new Gallup poll. And that's down from 57% in 2015. Gallup found the three main reasons for this lack of confidence were a political agenda, the cost, and not preparing students for a future career. All right, let's have another pause point. And kids, students, I've got to be your favorite person here because I'm asking you to put your parents on the spot again. All right, parents, if you considered college, did you worry about debt or indoctrination, either losing your Christian faith or your conservative beliefs? And the answer may simply depend on how long ago you went to school or where you went to school. But when I went to school, it was much cheaper than it is today. And I went to a conservative college, so I didn't have the concerns about having stuff pounded in my head by liberal professors. But that was certainly a concern even then, even around the turn of the millennium when I was looking at schools or colleges. Though what those Gallup poll results show is a stunning and frankly much deserved fall from grace. But it's important, students, for you to understand, and you've probably experienced this, that many schools and elected officials have spent decades pushing ever more kids into college. There has been a societal push, in many ways a bipartisan push, to push kids from high school into college. We see this most clearly on the left with Senator Bernie Sanders sponsoring the College for All Act. Okay, whether you agree with that act or not, and obviously I don't agree with it, that the message is right there, right? Everyone should go to college. College for all. It's not enough to graduate high school. You need to go on to higher education. Now, this effort over decades has certainly convinced more people to attend college. In 1974, just under 48% of high school graduates attended college. That's about half. That number topped 70% in 2009. 70%, 7 out of 10 kids. In 2014, it was 68.4%. It's gone down a little since then. But one of the reasons that so many high school students went to college was that they were told that going into college was a virtual guarantee of financial security. You've likely heard some version of this factoid. College graduates earn $1 million more than non-graduates during their careers. And there is actually strong statistical evidence that is true. So here's the argument. Well, just go to college and you'll be financially set for life. $1 million. Even with today's inflation, that's a lot of money. And even if college costs a little bit more than it used to, that's $1 million. You don't want to give that up. All those earnings. What would you do with an extra $1 million? All right, that's the argument, high school students, that you will encounter in the culture. So let's have a pause point. Which of the great 8 questions would you use to respond to this argument? And as a reminder, the grade 8 questions are questions we put in our mental toolbox to help us think about issues. And it doesn't just apply to political issues. We can use many of these same tools as you think about your future. And as a reminder, the questions are: question 1, what happens next? Question 2, has this been tried before? Question 3, is there a principle involved? Question 4, what are the trade-offs? Question 5, what do you mean by that? Question 6, is an appeal to emotion or logic? Question 7, am I focused on the speaker or the argument? And question 8, what does the Bible say? All right, I encourage you to pause and pick your argument that you would use to attack this argument in the culture that, going to college will put you on give you a golden ticket financially. All right, there are many options here. And so remember, if I don't choose your question, that doesn't mean you did anything wrong. There's lots of options. And the obvious one is question 2. Has this been tried before? Such a great question. Well, yes, we have seen this tried before. As we just talked about, there's been a huge increase in the number of people going to college. And there's also been a huge increase in student debt. In 2006, there was about $500 billion in student loan debt. All right, let's have a pause point. How much student loan debt do you think there was in 2025? So about $500 billion in 2006. How much in 2025? It is $1.83 trillion in student loan debt. Okay, so this should be setting off some alarm bells. Okay, so if going to college puts me on a financially secure future, why has college debt exploded? Wouldn't these people with all this extra money use their money to pay down the college debt? But it seems like there's a disconnect there. Again, this is why it's always just useful to take your ideas, to take your theories and test them in the real world. Because you can have a great theory and it can sound great on paper, and we're all human, we're all fallible. And so going and looking at what's actually happened in the real world is a great way to test it. Further, it's not just that students are in debt. 10% of federal student loan dollars were delinquent as of last year's financial fourth quarter. That's from educationdata.org. All right, and then the next question I would use to look at this argument is question 5, which is, what do you mean by that? When someone tells you that college graduates earn $1 million more than non-college graduates, does that mean all college graduates will earn more? Or are there some specific college graduates who earn more, who are pushing up the average? Is it the college that matters? Is it the major that matters? What percentage of college students actually complete college? Is it enough to just go to college, or do you need to complete college to get this $1 million golden ticket? Well, that question's particularly important because according to NSC Research Center, the national 6-year completion rate for the fall of 2019, so 6 years to complete a 4-year college degree, okay, not 4 years, 6 years. The completion percentage. All right, let's have a pause point. What do you think the completion percentage was? Maybe 80, 85%? No. 70%? No. It was 61.1%. Oh boy. Oh boy. So I hope you can see the problem. For everyone who's saying, just go to college, you'll earn $1 million more. Okay. But 4 in 10 students aren't completing their degree. So not great for them, right? They have the debt of college without the degree of college. In many ways, that could leave you worse off than simply not going to college. And I want to tell you a little story that kind of illustrates another problem with this statistic. In 1990, Michael Jordan, the famous basketball player, scored 69 points in one game. It was a career high game for him. That same night, his rookie teammate, Stacey King, came in late in the game and connected on a single free throw. He scored 1 point. Now, after the game, of course, the reporters wanted to talk to Michael Jordan, but the most memorable quote came from Stacey King when he said, "I will always remember this night. I will always remember this as the night Michael Jordan and I combined to score 70 points." That's terrific. I love that. I love that. I love that anecdote. But there's actually a bit of truth in here that you have to be thinking about as someone considering college. Okay, college graduates are earning on average a lot more money, but that's also including doctors and lawyers and engineers and people who are going and earning not just $1 million more, but they're earning maybe $10 million more than other people. And so you can't just take this and be like, oh, if I just complete a college degree, I'm going to earn $1 million more. Okay, someone might argue, so maybe college isn't a great financial decision for everyone. For some people, obviously it is. But students will develop their minds. They'll debate and discuss ideas. All right, let's take a little bit of a different version of question 2. Instead of what has this been tried before, let's go to what has actually happening. Are we seeing this on campus? That, yeah, maybe people aren't majoring in the highest earning subjects, but at least they're developing their minds. They're getting a true liberal arts education. They're studying the great works of history and literature, and they're debating the big ideas that will shape our future. Is that actually happening? Sadly, no. This is from the Buckley Institute, a poll that was released, I think, last year. For the first time in the history of the poll, more students support shout downs, 46%, than oppose them, 45%. Also, for the first time in the poll's history, an outright majority, 51% of college students, support speech codes on campus. Oh, so students aren't debating. Many students don't even want debate. A 2025 Axios poll found college students, 67% of survey respondents say they hold a positive or neutral association with the word socialism, compared with 40% with the word capitalism. So they aren't debating, they aren't discussing, and you can see a direct line between that and support for an ideology, socialism, which is just a different branding for communism, that has literally killed more than 100 million people. Okay, so that's not great. And worse, many students lose their faith in college. Now, there's a statistic going around that about 2/3 of students lose their faith in college. I couldn't quite pull that statistic up. I think it comes from a 2006 study by the Barna Research Group, and it found the most potent data regarding disengagement is that a majority of 20-somethings, 61% of today's young adults, had been churched at one point during their teen years, but are now spiritually disengaged, i.e. not actively attending church, reading the Bible, or praying. And only 1/5 of 20-somethings have maintained a level of spiritual activity consistent with their high school experiences. So we don't know what the percentages, I couldn't find what the percentages of the students, young people, young Christians who lose their faith in college. But it is some amount, certainly. And certainly when you go to many secular colleges, you are going to a place that is actively hostile to conservative ideas, but also the Christian faith. And that's hard to do as a student, as a young person. And these are some of the reasons that Charlie Kirk wrote a book called The College Scam: How America's Universities Are Bankrupting and Brainwashing Away the Future of America's Youth. Was he right? As you think about that, let me tell you about Mama Bear Prayers, a podcast for moms who are knee-deep in dishes and training their teens. Whether you are back in the carpool lane with school starting or enjoying the last little bit of summer, host Charlie Rios wants to come alongside you and help you grow deeper in your relationship with Jesus. It is hard to restart the school schedule. There, especially if you have more than a couple of kids, you are going places. You feel more like a taxi service than a mom. And Charity knows how that can leave moms feeling overwhelmed and isolated. And it's why she created Mama Bear Prayers. God works through prayers, so check out the Mama Bear Prayers podcast today. All right, Charlie Kirk wrote this great book, The College Scam, How America's Universities Are Bankrupting and Brainwashing Away the Future of America's Youth. And we've actually just gone over some of the strong evidence for that. So let's have a pause point. Did Charlie Kirk tell everyone not to go to college? What do you think? Well, we know that Charlie Kirk is not opposed to higher education in principle. He was a big fan of Hillsdale College, my alma mater. I was very fortunate to go there before it got super competitive. But so I'm certainly not as smart as the kids going there today, but I can claim it as my own. But more than that, this is what Kirk wrote in a 2022 op-ed. Am I really telling kids not to go to college? Absolutely. At least for most students. So I think that's important, right? Because what Kirk is saying is that colleges are bankrupting and brainwashing youth, and that's a problem. And there are too many kids going to college. Both of those things I think are well supported by the evidence that we have just discussed. But what he didn't say is that no student, no conservative should go to college. And this is what Kirk wrote in that 2022 op-ed. I challenge all students, parents, and grandparents to reconsider their assumptions. Dive deeper into the statistics, the stories, and the damage these institutions are doing to our nation. Weigh the terrifying consequences of the college scam and find out why we desperately need a renaissance in higher education. And I think this is actually a really good thing to do. And again, even if you are not a junior or senior, one of the things that will mark your transition from being a child to being an adult is thinking about the future. It's thinking about your future self. And how do you prepare your future self well for things that are coming? You are going to graduate high school. Are you preparing your future self well? And it just free life advice. It's much easier to prepare for things the longer you have to prepare for them. And so we're going to walk through the great 8 questions, and I'm not going to know the answers for you, but I just want we're going to walk through these and think about how would they apply to someone thinking about college or what's next after high school graduation. All right, question 1, what happens next? Just a great question for policy, great question for your life. Because when I was going to school 25 years ago, you could, because college was so much cheaper, if you had done well academically, you could just kind of go to college and think, I'm going to go to college, I'll get a degree, and then I'll find some sort of job. That doesn't work today with the cost of college. And so you need to think about what happens next. I go to college, and then what? What's the deliverable? Do you want to be a doctor? Okay, that's a real deliverable. I go to a good college. I have studied really hard. I am academically gifted. I go and I major in something like biology, and I leave college with a plan to become a doctor. Okay, that makes sense, right? You have a path where college makes sense. Now, say you're someone who works with your hands. Okay, well, you want to work with your hands. Maybe college doesn't make sense. Maybe it's a certificate or a community college where the cost is a lot lower. But you've got to think through this, because even careers like the police or the military, they are looking for people who are college educated. And so look at the career path that you are on or that you want to be on, and think, does a college degree actually help me? If I want to go start a business, am I better off paying someone $100,000 to learn them tell me about starting a business? Or am I better off taking a portion of that money and going and starting a business and seeing how it goes? I don't know what happens next. But just remember, and this is, One of the things, I went into the military after college. I joined the National Guard. It was a great experience. But there is a clear hierarchy in the military and even in law enforcement. They don't just want brawn. They want people who can think, and they really value that college degree. Again, that doesn't mean you have to go to a traditional four-year college, but just think about the career path you're interested in and, what is needed or what isn't needed. All right, question 2, has this been tried before? Okay, well, we've seen the pitfalls. We've seen the pitfalls of the cost. We've seen the pitfalls of the ideology. We've seen the pitfalls of college not preparing you for the real world. How do you avoid those? Learn from other people's mistakes. Is there a way to avoid debt? What about ROTC? Would it make sense to work before college? Can I get out of a year of college through AP courses or CLEP test or community colleges? Parents, we know that our students are going to go out into the real world. We know the culture is hostile to Christianity. And so I'm encouraged that you're listening to this podcast. That's the point of this podcast, is to help you prepare your teenager to leave, right? We're sharpening our arrows to send them out. But what about something like Summit Ministries and a Summit Ministries camp over the summer, using resources like Focus on the Family? Challenge your children in conversation at the dinner table, in the car rides, to defend their faith. Okay, question 3. Is there a principle involved with thinking about college? And there's lots of places you could go here, but the one that I think of is, in the Lord's Prayer, lead me not into temptation. And so parents, this is kind of where we get to help guide, especially if we're helping pay the bills. Maybe that college isn't going to cut it. Maybe it's this one. Maybe we can see the pathway to where your faith isn't going to be under so much assault. And teens, once you get to college, it's on you to find a Christian community, find a church. Those things are there, but you have to own them. You have to go find them because your parents aren't taking you to church anymore. You are now going to be an adult and going and doing those things. Now someone might respond and say, but missionaries go to unreached places. What's wrong with sending kids to a secular school? And again, I don't think it's a sin, but we should understand that missionaries go as adults after years of training and with other support. And here we're taking 18-year-olds and saying, okay, go to this very, not all colleges, obviously, but some colleges, this very dark place, and you'll do great, So again, I hope you see kind of the balance that I'm saying there. It is important. Some Christians certainly will go to very secular institutions, but we shouldn't be thinking of sending them as missionaries, because if you send someone as a missionary, they're going as an adult with lots of training and support. If they're going as a student, we have to think about how can we help them. Question 4, what are the trade-offs, right? Really important question for you to consider, because a college that could be a good deal at $15,000 a year may be a terrible deal at $50,000 a year. And oh, by the way, if you're paying quite a bit of money for college, it may be worth, not just doing something that interests you, but looking and saying, what are my job prospects with this major? What kind of internship can I get? How can I make connections that will help me after I leave college? Colleges these days have become, kind of all-encompassing. You can just stay on the college campus and your food's there, your gym's there, your friends there, your schooling's there. That is not the real world. College is not the real world. And people who stretch out the college experience with graduate school and graduate loans, it's fun for the moment, right? But there's a real trade-off with the future. And so, another trade-off, a Christian school versus a non-Christian school. What are the trade-offs there? And I see that I'm hitting 30 minutes, which I never like to do. But here I am. I'm just talking away. Let's go to question 8. What does the Bible say? And again, the Bible does not say go to college. Don't go to college. but it does give us some advice about how to seek the Lord's will to see what is best. Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not in your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make your paths straight. So when you are considering little decisions, big decisions, right? We're submitting ourselves to the Lord. We're having a daily time in the Word. We're praying. Proverbs 21:5. The plans of the diligent lead to profit as surely as haste leads to poverty. There's another example of planning, not just, oh, what do I feel like at the last moment? Planning, talking to people. All right. Let's end this podcast with some practical principles. Question 3 is, is there a principle involved? And these are practical principles that I think every high schooler should consider. And perhaps I just say this because I hope that my own children, my own high schooler and soon to be high schooler will listen if it comes through the podcast instead of me just talking to them. But here's some things that I would encourage, whatever you think you're going to think about college. First, gain hands-on experience. It is so much different reading about a career and experiencing a career. Do an internship, do a job shadow. Actually, just have a job and go to work. For 2 years in high school, I worked at McDonald's. It was a great job. And you know what I learned after 2 years of working at McDonald's? I didn't want to keep working at McDonald's. I wanted to go to college and I wanted to do something else. And that real experience is very helpful. If you want to work with your hands, if you think that would be something you enjoy, go work for a construction company for a summer. If you live in a hot area, can you handle the heat? What does that look like? If you want to be in law enforcement, do a ride along with a cop. If you want to teach, shadow a teacher. Gain hands-on experience. And I'm going to encourage you in this, teenager. Adults generally, not always of course, but generally are thrilled, not happy, thrilled to help young people with things like this. So do not be afraid to ask respectfully. But don't be afraid to approach someone that you think is, oh, well, I could never talk to that person. You'd be surprised at how delighted adults are to help teenagers who are interested in helping themselves. All right. Second, practical principle. You need to make a plan. Okay. Not when you're in 8th grade, right? But if you're a junior, I would encourage you to make a plan. And the reason is not to tie yourself to this plan of, oh, I have a plan and I can't do anything else because I made this plan when I was 16 years old and that's the plan. The reason you make a plan is because you want to measure every option. The reason you make a plan is because if you have no plan, then what you're going to do is you're going to measure every option against the benefits of all the other options. And then you're never going to feel like doing anything because if you go with one plan, you lose out on the mythical benefits of all the other plans, and you never think about the trade-offs. So consider this. Consider just 4 options. Maybe a young person is considering. All right, we've got college. Well, there's the joy of learning, might set you up best for the long term depending on your future career or interest. Well, maybe I want to go travel. That would be the funnest in the short term. Well, maybe I want to be in the military. I want to serve the country. I want the discipline it will instill. Maybe I want to go work in construction. That's the way I can make money the fastest. Okay, so you see what happens is if you don't pick one plan, then any plan that you come up with is going to look bad because you'll say, well, that doesn't give me the joy of learning. That doesn't give me the fun of traveling. That doesn't let me serve the country. It doesn't give me the money of construction. But once you pick a plan, then you say, okay, well, here are the benefits of both plans, and here are the trade-offs of both plans. So make a plan. Doesn't mean that is the plan that you'll stick with forever, but it gives you a much better measuring stick to measure other ideas and other options against. All right. Third thing, do hard things when you are young that will benefit you for the rest of your life. This is the time. This is the time. This is the privilege you have living in America, living in a free society, is going out and doing hard things, difficult things, long hours, military boot camp, trade school, starting in real estate, starting a business where you're having to work long hours. Do these things while you are young. First of all, you have lots more energy than when you're old. Take it from someone who's old. And also, this is a great experience. This is a great way to learn about things. And, oh, by the way, it will help your future self out for the rest of your life. Other couple of principles to just remember. I do encourage you to do hard things when you are young, but that is a means to an end. You work to earn a living. You don't live to earn money. So it is important. I encourage you to do hard things when you're young, but remember that hard thing is a means to an end. Hopefully involves marriage and a family, and maybe even more time or flexibility with your family because of what you did when you're young. So working hard is important, but it's not the goal. It's the means to an end. And sometimes when people are thinking, young people are thinking about what do I want to do with my life? They'll think, well, I like this thing. I like sports, or I like photography, or I like politics. Oh, no. Whatever it is, sometimes people will think, well, I like this, therefore I want to make it my career. Okay. Just remember something. Your career is not your hobby. Your career is going to be your job. And even if you do something that you really, really like, there are going to be parts of your job that you find annoying or frustrating or stressful. Every job is going to have that. And sometimes the challenges with these careers that are popular, like, oh, I want to go into sports management. Well, you know what? So does every other high school athlete in the country. So there's tons of competition in that field. Find something that's maybe not as well known, not as generally appealing, and you'll generally, right, have better career prospects and probably earn more money. All right, so let's have a final pause point here. What is one of these principles that you can discuss and consider today? And remember, these are just practical principles as you think about the future. The first would be gaining hands-on experience. Second would be making a plan. Third, doing hard things that will benefit you the rest of your life. 4, remembering that you work to earn a living. You don't live to earn money. And number 5, your career is not your hobby. Thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe on youtube.com/@sharpeningarrows, or leave us a 5-star review on your favorite podcast app. Be courageous like Charlie, stay sharp, and give God the glory. I'll see you next time.